A wise man once said that trust is like a mirror. Once it's broken, it's very difficult to put back together. But today, we accept that challenge and we're here to help regain trust back for Volkswagen.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ravesra. This is Pakapon Siwawong Kumrat, and together we're from Thammasat University. As consultant, our goal today is to help Volkswagen move forward and glide through all this problem. But first, let's take a look at where we are today and where we want to be. So currently, your company is an automobile manufacturer whom is facing severe trust issues. However, we envision a better tomorrow where your company will become the world's top leading manufacturer whom has all moved past this problem as well as regain your position in the market. And to bridge this gap, we present to you our 3 strategies of gear, accelerate, and cruise. Our gear strategy focuses on solving all internal problems in the company. Our accelerate strategy focuses on communicating all these values to all key stakeholders. And lastly, our cruise strategy focuses on establishing a long-term goal and plan for the company. But first, let's take a step back and look at the analysis that forms our strategy. Looking at the timeline of the scandal, we see that in 2007, your company established the Strategy 2018. This strategy hopes to accelerate the sales of the company, reaching over 10 million cars by 2018. So in 2008, to achieve this goal, your company began to introduce the clean diesel technology, which has been the new trend in the United States. Looking even further, in 2012, your CEO then came publicly and announced that you can reduce the CO emission by over 30%. However, this then forced your engineers to install a detective device which manipulated the results of CO emission to meet the regulative standards. Therefore, in 2015, in September, the US EPA discovered this issue, which led to the stock price decrease and the scandal. Looking even further, in October of 2015, this problem amplified when this was discovered that the problem affected not only Volkswagen, but all brands under the Volkswagen portfolio. Looking at the impact of this scandal, we see that it affected over 11 million cars around the world, and it affected 3 brands, including Volkswagen, Porsche, as well as Audi. This then further led to the $18 billion lawsuit, as well as a $7 billion recall program. This then further led to the decline in stock price by over 40%. So keeping all this in mind, the key question becomes, how can Volkswagen navigate its way out of this scandal and move forward in the future? With this, ladies and gentlemen, we present to you our 3 strategies of gear, accelerate, and cruise.
Now, gear is the strategies where we're looking to introduce a proactive approach as well as to introduce a long-term prevention plan to help you navigate to these troubled waters. So let's first take a look at the gear strategy. Now, there are 3 key components to this strategy: discover the problem, solve from within, and prevent beyond. With that, there are 3 key questions we would like to address in this strategy. First is in terms of how to discover the root causes of the problem. Second is in terms of how to proactively react to these problems. And finally, to establish a long-term prevention plan to tackle these problems. So let's first take a look at how we're looking to discover the root cause of the problem. What we realized was the fact that the problem lies in 3 key parties: the management, engineer, and the third party. So here, we want to take a look at what they've done that lead up to the scandal, as well as the motives behind that action. So let's start off with the management. What they did was in setting unrealistic goals that was very unachievable by its employees, and their motives in terms of helping to boost the company's performance. In terms of engineer, they have installed these devices that allowed us to manipulate the data, and the motive behind them is the fact that they are just obeying their management. Finally, in terms of the third-party inspection, here we take a look at that the main problem lies in the Germany Federal Motor Transportation, whereby what they did was the fact that they did not come inspect our company much earlier, and the motives is that they already trust in our brand, and that's why they believe that they don't have to step up in order to investigate. Now that we understand that the problem does not only lies within the company, but in fact extend beyond to the outside parties, let's address the second questions in terms of how we can proactively react to these problems. So we first take a look in terms of what the company have already implemented to address these scandals. In fact, they've done 4 things. First is the resignations of the CEO. Second is in terms of the press release. Third is in terms of introducing packages for its customers. And finally is in terms of setting up an inspection team. Now, what we realized was the fact that these solutions to a certain extent have solved some problem, but many of which still remains. For example, in terms of resignation of the CEO, this has highlighted the severity of the issue, but the problem is the internal culture are still not being resolved. In terms of the press release, this helped to increase transparency, but we believe that this is not enough. In terms of introducing the packages for its customers, this helped to regain some sort of trust from the customers, but there are still a large proportion of customers that are still not trusting the brand. And finally, in terms of the inspection team, with this, we have been able to discover some sort of problem, but the press still believe that many problems are still waiting to be discovered. So tapping on what they have done and looking at what remains in terms of the challenges, we introduce you to 3 key steps in which we believe would help proactively manage these scandals. Establish, disclose, and recall. Establish is where we're looking to establish a crisis management team comprises of 3 key parties: a senior management, an engineer team, and the PR team. Secondly, in terms of our disclose, this is where we want to set up an online platform that would daily disclose in terms of the proactive measures that have already been implemented. And finally, the recall program. When we take a look at the customers' packages, we believe that these are already very strong. And so we want to extend this to offer to the customers across all the brands that Volkswagen owns. So that is our answer to the second question in terms of how we're looking to proactively react to this problem. Now we take a look at the third key question in terms of how to establish a long-term solution. Now, to establish a long-term solution, we believe that we want to create 3 new changes: new culture, a new committee, and new involvement program. In terms of new culture, what we realized was the fact that Volkswagen has this obedience culture. So what we want to introduce is to encourage a bottom-up communication, where lower level employees will be actively involved in terms of target setting. This will help create that friendly environment within the company. Second changes in terms of the new committee. We want to set up an internal audit committee, but also establishing several whistleblowers, where the whistleblowers will be able to report back to the audit committee in terms of any suspicious activities. This will help increase the amount of scandal discovery within the company, as well as preventing them from happening in the future. Finally, in terms of new involvement program, this is where we believe that the problems is the fact that there's a low involvement with the authorities themselves. So we want to create more involvement. We want to be able to involve the authorities, the government, in terms of the inspection process. With these, we come back to the 3 key questions we have set up at the beginning of our strategies, and here's our answer. First, in terms of discovering the problem, here we have highlighted the issues ecosystem. Second, in terms of solving within the company, we've introduced a 3-step approach of establish, disclose, and recall. Finally, in terms of establishing a long-term solution, we've introduced a new culture, an involvement program, as well as a new audit committee. So the key takeaway is that by doing the following 3 things, we believe that your company is now ready to communicate to its key stakeholder. And so that is our first strategy of gear. Now let's take a look at accelerate.
So now that we have geared through the problem by solving an internal problem, it's time for us to accelerate in the market by communicating this resource perception towards the stakeholders. So first of all, let's take a step back and analyze who are these stakeholders. We identified 4. They're customer, shareholders, employees, and the government. We also take a step further to analyze how these stakeholders are being affected by the scandals, as well as the degree of impact these stakeholders are being affected. So let's start off with the customer, whereby how they're affected with regards with their buying a cheated product. They are not being delivered the promise they are being promised earlier when buying that car. So the degree of impact is to a certain level as follows. Moving forward, as in terms of the shareholder, the problem they find is first, there's a reduction in wealth as our share price drops more than 30%. In addition, they also find a lack of transparency within the organization they own. Moving forward, with regards to the employees, the problem they found that they are working in a company with a sense of corruption, a sense of scandal and cheat. And this is why we believe you have to address. Moving further, with regards to the government, the impact they are facing is with regards to the discompliance with the regulation regarding the Environmental Act. And this is crucial if Volkswagen grow further in the market. Furthermore, we have prioritized these stakeholders in order that you have to tackle with regards to the degree of impact. So moving on. So as you can see here, the stakeholders are being prioritized by the degree of impact as well as the urgency you have to address. First being the government, followed by the shareholders, customers, and lastly, the employees. We also take a step further to analyze what they value in order to craft the right key message we want to communicate to these stakeholders. First being the government, what they value here is a sense of environmental compliance. So the key message we want to highlight is we value safety and environment for your country. Moving further, with regards to the shareholder, they value wealth as well as they value the transparency. So our key message here is your trust will not be mishandled. With regards to the customer, as they value safe and quality product, the key message we want to highlight is your safety and satisfaction are our utmost priority. Lastly, with regards to the employees, they have found what they value is the transparency and a sense of trust within the organization. So our key message here would be your idea is our driving force. Now, we take a step further to analyze the strategy and tactics in order to communicate these values to these 4 stakeholders. First being for the government, we want to establish a relationship manager with the government within the organization to ensure that the right communication are being delivered to the government. With regards to the shareholder, we want to establish a frequent update on the, for example, investor meeting, as well as an email loop by the management addressing the progress you have been solving with regards to the scandals. Thirdly, with regards to the customer, we want to establish 2 things. First, the email list to the end consumers who are buying our cars. And secondly, we want to involve these dealers who are selling our car within the ecosystem. Lastly, for the employees, we want to establish a town hall meeting whereby the management team can communicate the right value to the employees and encourage a 2-way communication within the organization moving forward. And that's how we address these 4 key stakeholders. So the key takeaway here is simple. By communicating the right message to the relevant stakeholders, Volkswagen will successfully resolve the misconception as well as accelerate the brand recovery. So now that we have geared through the problem, accelerate through the problem by communicating the right value, it's time for us to set your company on a cruise control towards the success future. And this is where our 3rd strategy of cruise comes in. We want to establish a long-term growth strategy for you moving forward. So here we see we have established a degree of development with regards to your car based on the time horizon. First of all, within 1 year, we believe that it is essential that you deal with the existing cars. So what you have to do is to strengthen your carbon dioxide emission with the R&D department to make sure that the problem is being alleviated and the efficiency is being improved. In addition, we want to also install an emission monitoring screen for the end consumer, for the drivers on the newer models that would be launched. Looking onwards, within the next couple of years, we believe hybrid car would come into the market and would gain greater popularity. And this is why we recommend you to further roll out more models across all brands, for example, Audi, Porsche in the existing market, specifically within the US. And lastly, 3 years forward, we believe that the electric car would already be successfully established in the market. And this is why we want you to catalyze the growth for the rollout of electric car. And in addition, we also know that the ecosystem here is not just about the car. It's also about the supporting infrastructure. And this is why we recommend your company to work with Tesla as well as the regulators to establish a successful electric car infrastructure. And that's our 3-tier strategy in which we plan to establish a long-term future. And the takeaway here is rather simple. By ensuring a continuous innovation in eco-friendliness technology, Volkswagen will stay at the forefront of the auto landscape while sustainably preventing new scandals.
And that are our 3 strategies of gear, accelerate, as well as cruise. So for gear, it's where we're looking to solve all the problem internally. And for the accelerate, it's where we're looking to communicate this value out to the external party. And lastly, for the cruise, is where we want to set up the sustainable growth for your company. So now, with these 3 key strategies successfully implemented, we'll be able to achieve our 3 key financial impacts, which are first, we'll be able to regain the total market share of around 12% in the next 3 years. Second, we'll be able to maintain our car sales to around 11.8 million car sales in year 2018. And lastly, we'll be able to increase back our stock price coming from the trust that investors have. So looking further into the market share of our company, if we're doing nothing, we expect the total market share for our company to decline towards around 10% in the next 3 years. So with our strategies being implemented, we hope that our strategies will help your company gaining the market share of around 12%. And these are our key assumptions. So looking further into the cost estimations, the total cost is expected to be around 876 million US dollars, coming from the total investment of around 850 million and another 26 million coming from the total expense. And this cost will be funded by internally generated fund, short-term debt, as well as long-term debt. And as to ensure the success of our strategies, we have constructed an implementation timeline, which for the strategy, the first strategy of gear strategy, we hope that the external inspection establishment should begin right away, concurrently with extended our recall package. And we hope that we'll be able to develop our internal culture at the beginning of year 2017. And for the accelerate strategy, the cause and the root cause should be summarized as soon as possible, followed by the public announcement and public handling. And lastly, for the cruise strategy, we hope that the existing model R&D should begin at the second half of year 2016. And we hope that we'll be able to co-develop the infrastructure at the beginning of year 2017. And as we know that no strategy is perfect, therefore we have constructed a risk and a mitigation plan where we have prioritized our risk based on the severity of risk as well as the probability of occurrence. So we have also identified the ability to mitigate as well as a mitigation plan, where in this case, the greatest risk present to be the management in transparency, and we can mitigate this risk by notify the supervisory boards as well as encourage the top-down action.
So what have we done today? So currently, your company is an automobile company whom is struggling with a trust scandal. However, we envision a better tomorrow where your company will become the world's leading automobile manufacturer whom has moved past the scandal as well as regaining position in the market. And to bridge this gap, that's where our 3 strategies of gear, accelerate, and cruise come in. Thank you. With this, we believe that we will be able to help Volkswagen move forward and cruise ahead to the future. Thank you for your attention. Now we're open for Q&A.
thank you for your question. So in terms of the governance as well as the internal structure, we're looking to implement two key changes for long-term prevention. First is in terms of introducing a new culture where we're looking to integrate that bottom-up approach, where we're looking to integrate a system where a target will be sent to a lower management team for them to reflect upon whether they believe that will be achievable or not, and then send back up to a higher level management once again. In terms of the governance-wise, we want to introduce two new key functions. We want to introduce the audit committee as well as the whistleblowers. So this is whereby the whistleblowers can be from any department, and then they would be able to raise any red flag up to the audit committee, then can integrate the information and then act accordingly.
Do they need to do anything regarding the management board and the supervisory company, the top management? Do you see any need to do any restructuring, or what's your view on that?
So from what we have written in the case, you can see that in the management board as well as the supervisory board currently, they have the government board sitting in the position. So what we can see is that we can enhance the action from the government by involving more on the inspection as well as looking at the management of our company.
And just to quickly add on to that, we do recognize that the supervisory board also consists not only just government, but also the labor union as well as the management team. So we take a step further, like for example, if the management still should pursue the scandal, we believe that we can leverage and notify the supervisory board who will act upon and push down the command towards this party.
Question that I've got is around your gear. I like the three components of it. You're very clear on what it is that you're trying to do. Gear is about solving problems internally, and you stress that this is an internal. We're going to fix this internally. Isn't the problem that you're trying to address one that was created by a very internal focus and a lack of transparency in the first place? So if I've created a problem and then I say, okay, I'm going to solve it, why should you? Because I've created the problem willingly. Why would you trust me to solve it?
So please allow me to further elaborate. So in our gear strategy, we will now also be involving other third parties as well as government authorities and press whom will now be supervising and inspecting our production of automobiles and looking at the control of the CO emission as well. So we will now be involving not only the company but other third parties. So we believe that this will create much more transparency since all the public will be able to see what we're doing moving forward.
So as a team, we strongly believe that to address that, the key is about transparency. And that's where our gear strategy comes in. One of the things we would like to do under the disclose step is where we want to introduce an online platform where we're looking to daily update the public in terms of what has been internally done. And we believe that that's the key to creating transparency. And that's a key in terms of how public would you be able to regain trust back from the public.
How much additional bureaucracy does something of that scale add to your company's management? Doing that every single day. I mean, you're producing millions of cars a year, then you've got to disclose something every single day for thousands of processes that you're changing.
We totally see where you're coming from. So with regards to that, we totally understand that the degree of workload would be increasing significantly. So we believe that that would be implemented during the first couple of months just to alleviate the problem, to make sure that all stakeholders perceive that we are now being committed to solving the issues. And as the problems are being alleviated, we try to reduce the frequency to make sure that the operation can run as smoothly as possible. And that's how we believe can mitigate that problem.
And to add on to my colleague, we have planned to set up the public relation team who will be managing directly with this certain topic. So if the further party or the external party that has concern and problem with this issue, they can contact directly to our specific public relation department.
Let's look at a short term that you're so soon about in your fixing up the this next 1 year, you're going to be doing things like insurance of the car, all this, the vehicles operating properly and so on and so forth, right? And at the same time, there are a lot of penalties that are going to hit the company. So the US might fine us $80 million, right? So the question is, additional burden or the cost into running this whole will grow in 1 year's time, even a chance to be
So from the cost estimation that we have done, it's only about solving the problem. We have not considered the penalty fees and all the fees that we have to be fined, since we don't know the results that whether we'll be get fined.
And just to quickly add on to that, some of the lawsuits as well as the recalling costs have already been taken into effect, as the profit margin in the third quarter of 2015 has declined from a potentially positive 3.5 billion euro to a negative 3.6. So we believe that certain costs have already been taken care of, and we look forward as this is a problem that can have a certain severe impact. So we believe that during the first couple of years, the company might have to spend a more cost or expenses to mitigate this problem before going ahead as smoothly with our strategies.
So because I asked this question because you had in the last plan you estimated the whole cost of doing this about $800 million. I suspect it would actually be 10 times the cost of a $100 million problem. The next question is on the your right. So you talked about getting your market share back up to 12%, right? Selling 11.8 million cars in a single year, right? Could you explain how that is going to work? Where does it come from? Which geography
Okay, so currently we can see that the declining countries or the affected countries coming from mainly two countries, which are the Germany as well as the United States. So we consider two of these countries to lose lots of market share, as has been mentioned in the case that the total market share in United States has decreased significantly by knowing this problem. So by doing so, we believe that we could gain trust back mainly from these two countries, as well as another countries all around the world that has been affected, and it has been mentioned in the index. So we believe that the two major countries will be Germany as well as the United States, but there'll be another countries all around the area as well.
Your car sales projections of close to 12 million. No major car manufacturer manages at the moment to sell more than 10. And basically, history is when you get to 10, you manage it for a year or two, and you drop back down again. How do you sustainably get your 12 million units as well as 20% on the top? How do you do that?
So what we see here is in the first year, we will be correcting our diesel technology. However, moving forward, we won't be only selling diesel and gasoline cars. We will be also selling hybrid cars as well as electric cars. And we believe with this new cars that we will be selling, we will be obtaining a larger market share of the car market, since we will be moving forward with the technology that the consumers will be ready to adopt in the future.
I've got another question if I can go back to
Yes, please.
your disclosures, your plan for daily disclosures of all the things that you're uncovering day by day that's wrong with your company. What do you think that does to staff morale? And you factor that into the kind of change that you would have to bring about when people think beaten over the head every day about how bad they are.
So currently, one of the problems we see that this scandal occurred in the beginning was because the engineers had the culture of the company was a culture where the inferiors actually fear the superior management, and they believe that if they're obedient, they will be able to get promotions and move up in the organization. And that, however, made them feel that the company is not being very transparent and the company is corrupted. So we believe that if we actually are doing this PR where we are telling the public what we're doing every day, it will actually boost up the employee morale as well, since they would not have to act in a corruptive way, however act in a transparent way, and they will be able to work happily in a less stressful environment.
I think just to emphasize on that, through the disclose step, we are not looking to tell the public in terms of what we have done wrong. We're looking to strengthen in terms of the key improvement areas that we're looking to implement every single day. And I think through that, the employees' morale will, in fact, as my colleagues have mentioned, would have increased on the other hand.
And just to add on to that, our second strategy of Accelerate is where we are looking to communicate this message to the employee as well. And the key message we are using is your idea is our driving force. So what this means is we are reinforcing the fact that they're essentially very important. They are lifeblood of our organization. And with that, we believe we can further alleviate those problems moving forward.
Yeah, I just feel that your notion of setting up whistleblower, right? So could you tell me a little bit more about how you intend to operate the whistleblower thing?
Yeah. So the whistleblowers can be anyone from any department. But what we want to do is to set up an audit committee and to provide a channel for anyone to be able to report and reach out to the audit committee. Yeah.
So that seems like contradict. On one hand, we're saying that okay, we're going to tell our employees that your ideas are really valuable to drive our employees. On the other hand, we get daily disclosure. These are things we're trying to do. These things we're staying on. And then on the third hand, then people around you have no idea who's going to report on you. So this seems to be kind of a contradictory information. How do you resolve it?
We totally see where you're coming from. So based on our understanding, the whistleblower have to be secretive. This means that discretion is at most important within this particular practice. So basically, from our understanding, as of now, Volkswagen has implemented certain level of whistleblower, whereby employees will not be disclosed of their name who are reporting of the issue they found. So we believe that this is the preliminary step you can take in order to prevent that from happening, because we do know that secrecy and discretion is very important to disclosing a secret. And this is where our strategy comes in.
And sorry, to add on to your question just now, that you asked about the moral of the co-workers, am I correct? Yes. So we believe that this whistleblower is done in the purpose of to find the misconduct that is being sent from top managers to force the lower employees to conduct certain activities which may not be as transparent. So we believe that this will be a way for the whistleblowers or the employees to report back to the audit committee so the scandals in the future could be prevented and discovered early on.
Who's on your audit committee?
I think, first of all, with regards to the audit committee, we have a case study of Malaysia Airlines where it managed the crisis that happened. So basically, audit committee have to compose of not only just internal auditor within the organization, but we believe that taking a step further to ensure transparency, at least to a certain point of time, it is important that you involve a third-party auditor. And we believe that as of now, within the supervisory board, you already have that person in place. So that would be the person you can put on this audit team and put together the team that would further evaluate whether the action is being transparent enough in the organization.
I think just to emphasize on that, the key in terms of deciding who will be on the audit committee will be such that these people would not be easily influenced by the employees within the company. And ultimately, that's why we want to involve third party. Ultimately, that's why we want to involve key personnel who would not be easily influenced by the internal activities.
Thank you.